Super Mario is without a doubt one of the most, if not the most recognizable character in video games and fictional media in general. This character had humble beginnings in the arcades in 1981 and has now become a global icon and the flagship character for Nintendo. From Donkey Kong to Super Mario Odyssey, this plumber has seen massive success over the years, and has been in some of what many would consider the best games of all time. And the game that many consider the starting point of Mario's journey into universal popularity was Super Mario Bros. On the Famicom and Nintendo Entertainment System, which is the topic for today's video. But first, some history. Before Super Mario Bros., the character we now know as Mario began life as a character simply known as the Jumpman in the 1981 arcade game Donkey Kong, a game created by Shigeru Miyamoto and the late Gunpei Yokoi. The objective of the game was simple: guide Jumpman to the top of a given stage, all while jumping over barrels and other hazards, and rescue Pauline, a character who was effectively absent for quite a long time, up until the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series years later, and now surged into popularity once again thanks to her inclusion in Super Mario Odyssey. Following the release of Donkey Kong, Jumpman would be renamed to Mario, and would star in two more arcade games: Donkey Kong Jr., in which Mario is the villain having locked Donkey Kong in a cage, and Mario Bros., the game that establishes a few new details about Mario himself. In this game, Mario is revealed to be an Italian-American plumber from New York, and has a younger brother named Luigi. Apparently, the story goes that Jumpman was renamed to Mario because Nintendo of America at the time were renting a building from a company owned by a man named Mario Segali, who visited the warehouse to collect rent from them, and the staff decided to rename Jumpman to Mario in reference to Segali because they found the encounter memorable. Following the release of Mario Bros., Shigeru Miyamoto and fellow Nintendo employee Takashi Tezuka set to work on creating a new platforming game for the Famicom and Nintendo Entertainment System, with Koji Kondo composing the soundtrack. The end result of it all was Super Mario Bros., which released in 1985 on the Famicom and NES to universal acclaim, and even now, the game is still considered one of the best games of all time. Though one of the biggest mysteries surrounding this game is its release date. The NES itself launched in October of 1985, launching with the Rob the Robot accessory, the light gun known as the Zapper, and the game's Gyromite and Duck Hunt as part of a deluxe set. Now, Super Mario Bros. Launched in Japan in September of 1985, but for whatever reason, the North American release date is simply listed as Q4 1985, though the general belief is that the game may have also launched sometime in October of that year. Whether it launched alongside the console or sometime after, it seems no one really knows. It's a very interesting mystery to say the least. Story-wise, Super Mario Bros. Isn't what anyone would call complex. According to the manual, Bowser, who was known as King Koopa at this time, has taken over the Mushroom Kingdom with the help of his minions, the Koopa Troopas, has kidnapped Princess Peach, known then as Toadstool, and used his black magic to turn all of the inhabitants of the kingdom into blocks and other objects. And as Mario, your job is to put an end to Bowser's plot. As I said, it's very simple, but for a game like this, I'd say the story doesn't need to be something grand, just something that gets the job done, and this story does just that. It gets the job done. Now, much like the story, the gameplay isn't a complex affair either. The game is a linear side-scrolling platformer where the name of the game is running and jumping. The objective is to simply guide Mario to the end of a stage, all while jumping over any hazardous obstacles, such as Goombas, Koopas, and bottomless pits. Avoiding obstacles is essential because Mario is capable of only taking one hit before losing a life. However, the game offers some power-ups to help tip things in your favor. Super Mushrooms make Mario grow twice his size and allow him to take an extra hit. Fire Flowers do much of the same, but these allow Mario to shoot fireballs and allow him to eliminate most threats with ease. And finally, there's the Starman, which makes Mario temporarily invincible and instantly destroys enemies simply by touching them. One can also occasionally run into 1-up mushrooms, which grant Mario an extra life, but this can also be accomplished by collecting 100 coins, which are scattered throughout each stage and can also be found in small bonus areas where coins are plentiful. On the 4th stage of each world, you'll encounter a castle stage, which are among the most dangerous levels as traps and bottomless pits are plentiful. At the end of each of these levels, you encounter a boss fight with Bowser himself, who can be defeated by either touching the axe opposite him or by using a Fire Flower, which reveals that it was simply a clone of Bowser. Until World 8, where the real one awaits. After defeating the true Bowser, Mario rescues Princess Peach, who offers a second quest, which is the entire game again but with a few differences, such as Buzzy Beetles replacing Goombas and castles being a little bit more difficult. As I stated earlier, the gameplay as a whole isn't complex, but it is what I would call fun. Though I wouldn't say that the mid-air control is ideal, Mario does control well enough on the ground, and I feel he's very responsive to button inputs. And while the level design isn't out of this world, it's very much acceptable, and each level challenges the player in different ways, and I like that. And the difficulty as a whole is something that I find very manageable in this game. It starts off fairly easy, with World 1-1 being a very simple and effective tutorial stage that basically teaches you all the skills you'll need to progress. And as you move along, it gets progressively more difficult, and I find that because of this game is a good introduction to platformers, and the game doesn't even become ruthlessly difficult even in the later stages. It gets just hard enough to test how well you've learned the mechanics. The only times where I think the game even gets semi-cheaper with the Hammer Bros and the hammer-throwing variations of Bowser. The Hammer Bros aren't the worst offenders, but they can sometimes be unpredictable with their hammer tosses, and the hammer-throwing Bowsers can be an absolute nightmare sometimes. The Bowser encounters start off easy enough. He only jumps and occasionally shoots fire at you, so it makes for a rather simple encounter. But starting at World 6, he begins to throw hammers at you as well, and unlike the Hammer Bros who can only throw a light stream of hammers, Bowser can throw about 10 hammers at once on top of his usual attacks. So all these factors can make later Bowser fights pretty challenging. As far as presentation, this is where I think the game suffers a little bit. Graphically, the game certainly doesn't look terrible for an NES title, with the exception of Bowser, who I believe looks his worst in this title. And everything is colorful and easy to define, and as I said, the game certainly doesn't look bad for its time, but something about it just doesn't click with me, but that may be because I played games that followed first, so I may have a bit of a bias. And the soundtrack is a bit limited, but the tracks are a great listen. The overall theme specifically has become the theme of Mario and has been remixed hundreds of times, if not more, and it's a great listen. The other tracks are also good, but are very short by comparison. The castle theme is something I've grown to dislike over the years, because it just sounds like a mess of sounds. However, we aren't finished with Super Mario Bros. 1 just yet. Many ports of this game exist, however the two I believe to be the most substantial are the 16-bit version found on Super Mario Bros. All-Stars and the enhanced Deluxe port on the Game Boy Color. In 1993, Nintendo released Super Mario All-Stars for the Super Nintendo, which contains 16-bit remakes of every main series Mario title up to that point, barring Super Mario World, until All-Stars Plus World was released the following year. The game is effectively the same as the NES version, just with better graphics and sounds. It even has new original tracks in bonus rooms and during boss battles with Bowser. Otherwise, it's the same Super Mario Bros. We all know and love. The deluxe version on the GBC, though, is a bit different. The main game itself is the same, but now there's a save function, something the original didn't have, a map screen which gives the player an indication of what type of level to expect next, and by pressing select, the player can switch between Mario and Luigi, who both control the same, so this is purely cosmetic, but it's a cool addition regardless. There's also some other small changes as well, such as slightly enhanced music, and now there's some added animations to certain objects and characters. For example, the fireballs that jump out of the lava now have a small glow to them, Toad has some animations at the end of each castle, and lava and water now flow instead of just remaining static. So these are purely aesthetical changes, but these are ones that I think work. However, some bonus features are here as well. Most are minor additions, such as the art gallery and this fortune-telling minigame, but then we have You vs. Boo and Super Mario Bros. For super players. You vs. Boo is you racing against a Boo in stages designed specifically for this mode. It isn't terribly hard, but each time you defeat Boo, he changes color and gets more difficult to defeat. All of this culminating in a race against the Black Boo, who's supposed to be the hardest one to beat, though I've personally never unlocked this one. And Super Mario Bros. For super players is a port of the original Super Mario Bros. 2 unlockable after getting 300,000 points in the regular game. So honestly, with all these features, I don't think anyone would be wrong in saying that the deluxe version is the definitive version of Super Mario Bros. 1. The only real problem this port suffers from is that the screen is crunched due to the Game Boy Color having a smaller resolution, which can at times make some jumps that were easy in the original a leap of faith here because there's less on the screen than previously. You can hold up or down on the D-pad to get a better view of what's above or below you, but it can still make certain parts of the game a bit harder than the original. I don't think the screen crunch is a deal breaker, but it's just annoying sometimes. Super Mario Bros. Is a timeless classic of the NES library and of gaming in general. It's a game that helped make video games popular again in its time and made popular side-scrolling platformers. While I do think that most of the games that came after are much better in terms of nearly every aspect, the game's legacy cannot be denied. This game launched an entire franchise and one that has consistently proven to be one of the best. And regardless of how you decide to play it, Super Mario Bros. Is a simple but fun platformer that I believe anyone can pick up and play and is overall a great time. However, Mario's adventures on the NES don't stop here, so when next we meet, we'll be taking a look at both versions of Super Mario Bros. 2, the original Famicom Disk System version and the version that was released everywhere else, as well as their various ports and remakes. Until then, take care everyone.